Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the channel. So today we are finishing the reading of Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined by Stephenie Meyer, and we are going to be concluding with the epilogue, which is called An Occasion. And this post is going to be premiering on New Year's Eve. So everybody, Happy New Year! And I say that the conclusion of this read aloud is going to be the perfect way to step into the new year of 2023. So before we begin the reading, I just have to make the quick disclaimer that I do not own any of the text being presented here, nor am I trying to present any of the text as my own. This is all simply a read aloud that I'm doing on this channel for entertainment purposes, and it's all in fair use. And once again, Life and Death, Twilight Reimagined is owned by Stephenie Meyer, and this is the epilogue in Occasion, and then we're going to read the Afterword. "Are you sure this was a good idea?" she asked. "I should be here. Tell me if it gets to be too much." I nodded. We were 100 feet up in the branches of a tall hemlock, sitting side by side on a thick bough. I had my arm around her, and she held my other hand in both of hers. I could feel her eyes on my face. Worried. The branch swayed under us in the wind. About 2 miles away, a caravan of cars was driving up Callawah Way with all their headlights on, though it was daytime. We were southeast and upwind, carefully situated so that we wouldn't be close to any people. It was too far for Edith to be able to hear much of what anyone was thinking. But that was okay. I was sure I'd be able to guess most of it. The first car was the hearse. Right behind it was the familiar cruiser. My mom was in the passenger seat, and Phil was in the back. I recognized almost everyone in the cars that followed. I couldn't watch the actual funeral. It had been held inside a church building. The graveside service would have to be enough. The hearse was overkill. There hadn't been enough of the body that they'd found inside the burned-out shell of my truck to need a casket. If I'd been able to consult with my parents, I would have told them not to waste the money and just get an urn. But I guess if it made them feel better, maybe they really wanted a grave to visit. I'd seen where they were putting me, or what they thought was me. The hole was dug yesterday, right beside Grandma and Grandpa Swan. They'd both died when I was little, so I hadn't known them well. I hoped they didn't mind having a stranger next to them. I didn't know the stranger's name. I hadn't wanted to know every detail about how Archie and Eleanor had faked my death. I just knew that someone roughly my size, who had been recently interred, had taken one last trip. I assumed that all the identifiers had been destroyed. Teeth, prints, etc. I felt pretty bad for the guy, but I supposed he didn't mind. He hadn't felt anything when the truck veered into a ravine somewhere in Nevada and burst into flames. His family had already mourned. They had a tombstone with his name on it, like my parents had now. Charlie and my mom were both pallbearers. Even from this distance, I could see that Charlie looked 20 years older and my mom moved like she was sleepwalking. If she hadn't had the casket to hold onto, I'm not sure she would have been able to walk in a straight line across the cemetery lawn. I recognized the black dress she was wearing. She'd bought it for a formal party and then decided it aged her. She'd ended up going to the party in red. Charlie wore a suit I'd never seen before. I would guess it was old rather than new. It didn't look like it would button, and his tie was a little too wide. Phil helped too, and Alan and his dad, Reverend Weber. Jeremy walked behind Alan. Even Bonnie Black held onto one of the brass handles that while Jules pushed her chair. In the crowd, I saw almost every person I knew from school. Most were in black, and lots of them were holding each other and crying. It kind of surprised me. I didn't know many of them very well. I guess they were just crying because it was sad in general. Someone dying when they were only 17. It probably made them think about their own mortality and all of that. One group of people stood out. Crean, Ernest, Archie, Jessamine, Royal, and Eleanor, all in light gray. They held themselves straighter than anyone else. And even from a distance their skin was obviously different. At least to a vampire's eyes. It all seemed to take a really long time. Lowering the casket, the Reverend giving some kind of speech, a sermon. My mom and dad each throwing a flower into the hole after the casket, everyone awkwardly forming the obligatory line to speak to my parents. I wished they would let my mom leave. She was sagging into Phil, and I knew she needed to lie down. Charlie was holding up better, but he looked brittle. Jules wheeled Bonnie over so that she was behind him, a little to the side. Bonnie reached forward and took Charlie's hand. It helped. It looked like that helped some. This put Jules in a position where I could see her face really well, and I kind of wished I couldn't. Crean and the rest of the Cullens were near the end of the line. We watched as they made their way slowly to the front. They were quick with my mom. They'd never met her before. Archie brought a chair up for my mom to sit in, and Phil thanked him. I wondered if Archie had seen that she was going to fall. Crean spent more time with Charlie. I knew she was apologizing for Edith's absence, explaining that she'd been too distraught to come. This was more than just an excuse for Edith to be with me today, and it was laying groundwork for the next school year, when Edith would continue to be so distraught that Ernest would decide to homeschool her. I watched as Bonnie and Jules left while Charlie was still talking to Corinne. Bonnie threw a dark glance back at the Cullens, then suddenly stared in my direction. Of course she couldn't see us. I glanced around, trying to figure out what she was looking at. I realized that Eleanor was looking at us too. She had no trouble spotting us, and she was trying very hard not to smile. Eleanor never took anything seriously. Bonnie must have wondered what Eleanor was staring at. Bonnie looked away after a few seconds. She said something to Jules. They continued on to their car. The Cullens left after the Blacks. The line dwindled, and finally my parents were free. Phil took my mom away quickly. The Reverend gave them a ride. Charlie stayed alone while the funeral home employees filled the hole in. He didn't watch. He sat in the chair that my mom had used and stared away to the north. I felt my face working, trying to find the expression that went with my grief. My eyes were too dry. I blinked against the uncomfortable feeling. When I took my next breath, the air hitched out of my throat like I was choking on it. Edith's arms wrapped tight around my waist. I buried my face in her hair. I'm so sorry, Beau. I never wanted this for you. I just nodded. We sat like that for a long time. She nudged me when Charlie left so I could watch him drive away. Do you want to go home? She asked. Maybe in a little while. All right. We stared at the mostly empty cemetery. It was starting to get darker. A few employees were cleaning up chairs and trash. One of them took away the big picture of me, my school picture from the beginning of junior year back in Phoenix. I'd never liked that one much. I hardly recognized the boy with the uncertain blue eyes and the half-hearted smile. It was difficult to remember him being him. Hard to imagine how he must have looked to Edith, back in the beginning. You never wanted this for me, I said slowly. What did you want? How did you see things happening? Going with the fact that I was always going to be in love with you. She sighed. Best case scenario? I hoped that I would get strong enough that we could be together while you were human. That we could be something more than just boyfriend and girlfriend. Someday if you didn't outgrow me, more than just husband and wife. We wouldn't be able to grow old together, but I would have stayed with you while you grew old. I would have been with you through all the years of your life. She paused for a second. And then, when your life is over, I wouldn't have wanted to stay without you. I would have found a way to follow. She looked startled when I laughed. It wasn't a very robust laugh, but I was surprised that it felt good. That was a really, really horrible idea, I told her. Can you imagine when people thought I was your dad, your granddad? I'd probably get locked up. She smiled hesitantly. That wouldn't have bothered me, and if anyone had locked you up, I would have busted you out. But you would have married me? I asked. Really? Now she smiled wider. I will. Archie's seen it. I blinked a few times. Wow, I'm super flattered. You would really marry me, Edith? Is that a proposal? I thought for half a second. Sure it is. Will you? She threw her arms around me. Of course I will, whenever you want. Wow, I said again. I hugged her back and kissed the top of her head. I think I could have done better with the other version, though. She leaned back to look at me, and her face was sad again. Any other way ended here, too. But there could have been a better goodbye. I didn't want to think about what my last words to Charlie were, but they were constantly on my mind. It was the biggest regret I had. I was glad that memory wasn't sharp, and I only hoped it would fade more with time. What if we had gotten married? Graduated together, put in a few years at college, then had a great big wedding where we invited everyone we knew. Let them all see us happy together. Give really sappy speeches, have a reason to tell everyone how much we loved them, then go away again, back to school somewhere far away. She sighed. That sounds nice. But you end up with a double funeral in the end. Maybe. Maybe we'd be really busy for a year, and when I'm a mature vampire and all right, and all under control, I could see them again. Right, she said, rolling her eyes. And then all we have to worry about is never aging and getting on the bad side of the Volturi. I'm sure that would end well. Okay, you're right. There's no other version. I'm sorry, she said quietly again. Either way, though, Edith, if I hadn't been dumb enough to run off and meet that tracker, she hissed, but I kept talking. It would have only delayed things. You still end up here. You're the life I choose. She smiled, slowly at first, but then suddenly her smile was huge and dimpled. It feels like my life never had a point until I found you. You're the life I was waiting for. I took her face in my hands and kissed her while the branch swayed back and forth under us. I could never have imagined a life like this. There was a heavy price to pay, but I would have chosen to pay, even if I'd had all the time in the world to consider. We both felt it when her phone vibrated in her pocket. I figured it would be Eleanor, sarcastically wondering if we'd gotten lost on our way back. But then Edith answered the phone. Corrine? She listened for just 1 second, her eyes flying open. I could hear Corrine's voice trailing at top speed on the other end. Edith shoved off the branch, phone still in hand. I'm coming, she promised as she fell forward toward the ground, breaking her fall with a branch here and there. I swung down quickly after her. She was already running when I hit the ground, and she didn't slow for me to catch up. It must be really serious. I ran flat out, using all the extra strength I had because I was new. It was enough to keep her in sight as she sprinted across the most direct route back to the house. My strides were almost 3 times as long as hers, but still, chasing her was like chasing a bolt of lightning. It was only when we were close to the house that she let me catch up. Be careful, she warned me. We have visitors. And then she was off again. I pushed myself even harder to try to match her. I didn't have a positive perception of visitors. I didn't want to meet them without me next to her. I could hear snarling before we were at the river. Edith kept her leap low and straight, hurtling up the lawn. The metal shutters were down across the glass wall. She ran around the south end of the house. I was on her heels the whole way. She darted over the railing onto the porch. All the Cullens were there, huddled into a tight defensive cluster. Corrine was a few steps in front of them, though I could tell no one was happy to have her there. She was leaning toward the steps, staring forward, a pleading look on her face. Edith lunged to her side, and something snarled in the darkness in front of the house. I launched myself onto the porch, and Eleanor yanked my arm back when I tried to go to Edith. Let her translate, Eleanor murmured, ready to rip out of her hands. Not even Eleanor was strong enough to stop me when I was so young. I looked out past Corrine to see the vampires we were facing. I'm not sure that what I was expecting. A large group, maybe, since the Cullens seemed so defensive. I wasn't preparing to see 3 horse-sized wolves. They weren't growling now. All of their massive heads were up, their noses pointing at me. The one in the lead, pitch black and larger than either of the others, though they were both 3 times bigger than I'd ever dreamed a wolf could get, took a step forward, his teeth bared. Sam, Edith said sharply. The wolf's head swung around to face her. You have no right to be here. We haven't broken the treaty. The black monster wolf snarled at her. They didn't talk, Corrine said to Edith. I don't know what they want. They want us to leave. They were trying to drive you out. But why? Corrine asked. The wolves seemed to be listening intently to every word. Could they understand? They thought we broke the treaty, that we killed Beau. The big wolf growled, long and low. It sounded like a saw being dragged over a chain link. But, Corrine began. Obviously, Edith answered before she could finish. They still think we broke the treaty, that we chose to change him ourselves. Corrine looked at the wolves. I can promise you that's not how this happened. The one Edith called Sam kept up the long growl. Flecks of saliva dripped from his exposed fangs. Beau, Edith murmured. Can you tell them? They aren't going to believe us. I'd been frozen solid this whole time. I tried to shake off the surprise as I moved to stand by Edith. I don't understand. What are they? What treaty are you talking about? I whispered the words fast, but it was obvious from the wolves' alert ears and watchful eyes that they were listening. Wolves that understood English? Eleanor had said Edith was translating. Did she speak wolf? Bo, Edith said in a louder voice. These are the Quileute wolves. You remember the story? I stared at the massive animals. They're werewolves? The black wolf growled louder, but the dark brown one in the back blew a funny huff that sounded almost like a laugh. Not exactly, Edith said. A long time ago, we made a treaty with another pack leader. They think we violated it. Can you tell them how you were transformed? Okay. I looked at the black wolf who seemed to be in charge. I'm, Beau Swan. She knows who you are. You met Sam once, at the beach in La Push. The cloudy human memories distracted me for a short second. I remembered the tall woman at La Push, and Jules saying that the wolves were her sisters, that her great-great-grandmother had made a treaty with the cold ones. Oh, I said. Just explain to her what happened. Right. I looked at the wolves again, trying to picture the tall woman somehow inside it. A few weeks ago, there was a vampire tracker, who came through here. She liked the way I smelled. The Cullens told her to back off. She left, but Edith knew she was planning to try to kill me. I went back to Phoenix to hide out till the Cullens could, take care of her, But the tracker figured out where I was and caught up to me. It was a game to her. A game with the Cullens. I was just a pawn. But she didn't want to kill me. I guess you could say she was playing with her food. The Cullens found me before she could kill me, but she'd already bitten me. Hey, do we still have the video? I glanced over at Edith, who was staring at the wolves. She shook her head. I turned back to Sam. It's too bad. The tracker was filming the whole thing. I could have shown you exactly what happened. The wolves looked at each other. Edith's eyes were narrowed as she concentrated on what they were thinking. Suddenly, the black wolf was staring at her again. That's acceptable, said Edith. Where? The black wolf huffed, and then all three were backing away from the house. When they got to the edge of the trees, they turned and ran into the forest. The Cullens all converged on Edith. What happened? Careen asked. They aren't sure what to do, Edith said. They were asked to clear us out. Sam is the actual chief of the tribe, but only in secret. She's not a direct descendant of the chief we made a treaty with. They want us to talk to the acting chief, the true great-granddaughter of the last wolf chief. But wouldn't that be Bonnie? I gasped. Edith looked at me. Yes, they want to meet at a neutral location so that Bonnie could see you and make the call. See me? But I can't get that close. You can do it, Beau, Edith said. You're the most rational newborn I've ever seen. It's true, Crean answered. I've never seen someone adopt so quickly. If I didn't know better, I'd say you were a decade old. It wasn't that I thought they were lying, just that maybe they didn't get the magnitude of what they were proposing. But it's Bonnie, my dad's best friend. What if I hurt her? We'll be there, Eleanor said. We won't let you do anything stupid. Actually, Edith said. Eleanor looked at her, shocked. They asked that we bring no more than her pack, only 3. I already agreed. Beau has to be one, I have to be one, and the other needs to be Careen. It was clear Eleanor was hurt. Is that safe? Ernest asked. Edith shrugged. It's not an ambush. Or they hadn't decided to make it one. Not yet, Jessamine said. She was standing protectively by Archie, and there was something wrong with him. He looked a little dazed. Archie? I asked. I'd never seen him look like he was behind things instead of ahead of them. I didn't see them, he whispered. I didn't know they were coming. I can't see now. I can't see this meeting. It's like it doesn't exist. I could see that this was news only to me. The others had heard it before we'd arrived, and Edith had already picked it out of his head. What does that mean? I asked. We don't know. We don't know, Edith answered sharply, and we don't have time to figure it out now. We want to be there when they arrive. We don't want them to have a chance to change their minds. It will be fine, Crean said to the others, her eyes on Ernest. The wolves are just trying to protect the people here. They're heroes, not villains. They think we're villains, Royal pointed out. Heroes are not, Careen. We still have to accept that they're our enemies. It doesn't have to be that way, Careen whispered. And it doesn't matter either way tonight. Edith said. Tonight Bo needs to explain to Bonnie so that we don't have to make the choice between leaving Forks and raising suspicions or getting into a fight with 3 barely legal wolves who are just trying to protect their tribe. Archie can't say if you'll be in danger. Jessamine reminded me. We'll be fine. Bonnie won't hurt Bo. I'm not sure that's true now, and I know she won't have any problem watching you get hurt. Who's speaking? I'm not sure if that's true now, and I know she won't have any problem watching you get hurt. I can hear the wolves just fine. They won't take us by surprise. Tell us where to go, Eleanor said. We'll keep our distance and only come in if you call. I promised. There's no reason to go back on my word. We need them to see that they can trust us. Now more than ever. No, Edith said says Jessamine apparently thought of another argument. We don't have time. We'll be back soon. Eleanor grumbled, but Edith ignored her. Bo, Corinne, let's go. I took off after her, and I could hear Corinne do the same. Edith didn't run as fast this time, and we both easily kept up. You seem very confident, Corinne said to Edith. I got a good look at their minds. They don't want this fight either. There are 8 of us. They know they won't win if it comes to actual bloodshed. It can't. I won't have them. I'm not in disagreement with that, but it would cause problems if we left now. I know. I listened, but my thoughts were far away, thinking about Bonnie and Charlie and the fact that I could be nowhere near human beings right now. I'd heard plenty from the others about the newborn years, especially Jessamine, and I wasn't ready to try to be the first exception to the rule. Sure, I hadn't had a hard time picking up most things, and everyone was surprised by how calm I was, but this was different. Edith had been very careful to make sure I was never tested when it came to the most important thing, not killing anyone. And if I screwed up tonight, not only would I destroy my father's world, he needed a friend now like he never had before, but I'd also ignite some kind of war between the Cullens and the giant werewolves. I never felt clumsy in this new body, but suddenly that same sense of impending doom was hanging over me. Here was my chance to mess things up in a really spectacular way. Edith led us northeast. We crossed the freeway where it turned to East Port Angeles and continued due north for a short time, following a smaller road. Edith stopped in a wasteland on the side of the dark road, a large clearing recently made by loggers. Edith, I don't think I can do this. She took my hand. We're upwind. Corinne and I will try to stop you if something happens. Just remember not to fight us. What if I can't control it? What if I hurt you? Don't panic, Bo. I know you can do this. Hold your breath. Run away if it gets bad. But Edith, she put her finger to her lips and stared southward. It wasn't long before a new set of headlights turned into view. I was expecting the car to pass. After all, the wolves wouldn't even fit inside the little sedan. But it slowly came to a stop not far from where we waited, and I realized it was Bonnie inside and someone else in the driver's seat. Then 2 of the wolves were there, coming from the forest on the other side of the road. They split to move around the car on either side. It looked protective. The woman in the driver's seat got out and came around to get Bonnie. I wasn't sure it was Sam, though her hair was just as short. I stared at her, wondering if I'd met her on the beach, too, but she didn't look familiar. Like Sam, she was tall and looked strong. Clearly, she didn't just look strong. She picked Bonnie up in her arms and carried her like the older woman weighed nothing, kind of like the way the Cullens had thrown me around as if I were a feather pillow. Maybe the wolves, because obviously this was the gray wolf who was missing from the original trio, were stronger than normal humans too. Sam and the dark brown wolf led the way as the tall woman carried Bonnie behind them. Sam stopped a good 30 yards away from where we stood. I can't see as well as you, I heard Bonnie say tartly. Sam prowled another 10 yards forward. Hello, Bonnie, Corinne said. I can't see, Paula, Bonnie complained again. Her voice sounded rough and weak to me. I'd been listening to no one but vampires for a month. The half-wolf, half-human pack moved slowly forward until they were only 10 yards away. I held my breath, even though the light wind still blew from behind me. Corinne Cullen, Bonnie said coldly. I should have put it together sooner. It wasn't until I saw you at the funeral that I realized what had happened. But you were wrong, Edith said. That's what Sam says, Bonnie answered. I'm not sure she's right. Bonnie's eyes flickered to me and she shuddered. All we have is Beau's word and our own. Will you believe either? Edith asked. Bonnie harumphed but didn't answer. Please, Corinne said, and her voice was much kinder than either of the others. We've never hurt anyone here. We won't start now. It would be better for us not to leave immediately, otherwise we would go without an argument. You don't want to look guilty, Bonnie agreed sarcastically. No, we would rather not, Corinne said, and in truth, we are not in breach. Bonnie looked at me. Then where is Beau? Do you expect me to believe that he's inside that thing that bears some slight resemblance to him? Hurt was strong in her voice, but so was hate. I was surprised by her reaction. Did I really seem so different? Like I wasn't even here? Bonnie, it's me, I said. She winced at my voice. I was out of air. I gripped Edith's hand and took in a shallow breath. Still upwind. It was okay. I know I look and sound a little different, but it's still me, Bonnie. So you say. I raised my free hand helplessly. I don't know how to convince you. What I told Sam was true. Another vampire bit me. She would have killed me too, except that the Cullens got there in time. They didn't do anything wrong. They were always trying to protect me. If they hadn't gotten involved with you, this never would have happened. Charlie's life wouldn't be broken in pieces. You'd still be the boy I knew. I'd had this argument before, and I was prepared. Bonnie, there's something you didn't know about me. I used to smell really good to vampires. She flinched. If the Cullens hadn't been here, those other vampires would still have come to Forks. They might have killed more than me while they were here, but I can promise you, if Charlie had survived, he would be missing me just the same, and there would be nothing left of the boy you used to know. You might not be able to see it, but I'm still here, Bonnie. Bonnie shook her head, less angry though, I thought, more sad. She looked at Corinne. I'll concede that the treaty is intact. Will you tell me your plans? We'll stay here for another year. We'll leave after Edith and Archie graduates. It will look natural that way. Bonnie nodded. All right, we'll wait. I apologize for our infraction tonight. She sighed. It was a mistake. I was overwrought. We understand, Corinne said softly. There was no harm done. Maybe even some good. It's better to understand each other as much as possible. Perhaps we could even talk again some. The treaty is unbroken, Bonnie said in a hard voice. Don't ask any more from us. Corinne nodded once. Bonnie looked at me again and her face fell. The breeze shifted. Edith and Corinne both grabbed my arms at the same time. Bonnie's eyes went wide and then narrowed angrily. Sam snarled once. What are you doing to him? Bonnie demanded. Protecting you! Edith snapped. The dark brown wolf took a half step forward. I took a quick breath, preparing myself to run if it was bad. It was bad. Bonnie's scent was like fire as it rushed down my throat, but it was more than just pain. It was 1,000 times more appealing than any of the animals I'd hunted, not even in the same class. It was like someone was waving a perfectly cooked filet mignon in front of me after I'd been living on stale crackers for a year. But more than that, I'd never tried drugs, but I thought Eden's heroin comparison might be the closer version. And yet, while I wanted to quench my thirst badly, I knew instantly that I didn't have to. I wouldn't want to be any closer to her, no, but I was pretty sure I could handle it even then. I'd expected that when the newborn thing reared its ugly head, I wouldn't be able to think or decide, that I wouldn't be a person anymore. I'd be an animal. I was still me, a very thirsty me, but me. It took only half a second for me to figure this all out. No, don't worry, Bonnie, I said quickly. I'm new to this, and they don't want me to lose it, but I'm okay. Edith slowly took her hand off my arm. Corinne looked at me, her face kind of odd. Bonnie's eyes were still narrowed, but I could see she was confused too. She hadn't expected me to act so much like myself, maybe. I decided to take advantage of the unexpected opportunity. I took another breath, and though it hurt just as badly, I knew I was fine. So it sounds like I won't have a chance to talk to you again, I said, and I'm sorry it's that way. I guess I don't understand all the rules yet, but since you're here, if I could just ask one favor. Her face got hard again. What? My dad. My breath did that weird hitching thing again, and I had to take a second before I could go on. Edith put her hand on my back, but it was for comfort this time. Please, just take care of him. Don't let him be alone too much. I never wanted to do this to him. Or my mom. It's the hardest part of all this. For me, it's fine. I'm good. If only there was anything I could do to make it better for them, I would, but I can't. Could you please watch out for him? Bonnie's face went blank for a minute. I couldn't read it. I wished I could hear like Edith did. I would have done that regardless, Bonnie finally said. I know, I couldn't help asking, though. Do you think you could let her know if there ever is something I can do, from behind the scenes? She nodded slowly. I suppose there may be some of Beau left after all. I sighed. She was not going to believe it if I told her that all of me was left, and that there was just more added on top. Is there anything else I can do for you? I froze for a tenth of a second, surprised by the offer. I could tell Edith and Cream were surprised too, but there was something more I wanted. I began, will you ever tell Jules about any of this? I looked at the enormous wolves flanking Bonnie. Or will it always be a secret? I didn't understand the look that crossed her face now. Jules will know soon enough. Oh, okay. Well, if she can know about me, can you tell her that I'm happy? It's not so bad, this whole vampire thing. Bonnie shuddered. I'll tell her what you said. Thanks, Bonnie. She nodded. Then she looked at the tall girl carrying her and jerked her chin back the way they'd come. As they turned, I saw a tear escape the corner of her eye. The wolves backed away from us too. I hoped it wasn't the last time I would see Bonnie. I hoped that when Jules was in on the secret, I would be allowed to see her too, or at least talk to her again. I hoped that maybe someday the wolves would see that the Cullens were heroes too. Bonnie's car drove away. The wolves melted into the trees. I waited until Edith was done listening to their departure. Tell me everything, I said. She smiled. I will when we get home, so I don't have to repeat all of it. There was a lot. She shook her head like she was amazed. We started running, not so fast as before. Huh, actual werewolves. This world is even weirder than I thought, I said. Agreed, Edith said. That's right. You thought there weren't werewolves here anymore. That must be kind of a shock. They weren't the most shocking thing I saw tonight. I looked at her, then at Corinne. Corinne smiled like she was in on some joke. I mean, I knew you were special, Beau, but that was something else. But there was something else back there. Jasmine's not going to believe it. Oh, but I stared at her. You said you knew I could do this. She dimpled. Well, I was pretty sure the wind would hold steady. Corinne laughed. Then she exchanged a glance with Edith. She sped up as Edith slowed. In a second we were alone. I kept pace with Edith and stopped when she stopped. She put her hands on either side of my face. It's been a long day, a hard one, but I want you to know that you're extraordinary, and I love you. I pulled her tight against me. I can handle anything as long as you're with me. She wrapped her arms around my neck. Then here I will stay. Forever, I said. Forever, she agreed. I leaned down until my lips found hers. Forever was going to be amazing. Oh my god! That ending was so much more satisfying than the first Twilight. Oh my god, that was so... Like, the fact that Beau was proposing to Edith at his own freaking funeral. But at the very least, even though the treaty is broken, in a couple of years or so, after Edith and Archie graduate, they'll be able to move on to somewhere else soon enough. So I can only imagine where the heck they move on to. I don't know where they move to next. But I have to say that ending was pretty damn sweet. I have to say, that was a very damn sweet ending for Beau and Edith, knowing that they're going to get married and that they're going to have a future together and that they have forever together. Like, that's the whole point of Twilight, is the inevitability that eventually, one way or another, they're going to have forever. Like, I have no words. This chapter was just incredible. This epilogue was so much less painstaking than the epilogue of the first book and even Midnight Sun, because we know that this epilogue was damn necessary. Oh, it was necessary. It was a very necessary epilogue to have, and it felt like so much more of an occasion than Edward taking her to prom and telling her, oh, I want you to live your life like I died in 1918, like I should have. me tell you, this epilogue felt a lot more like a special occasion than the first one did in the first Twilight. That's all I can say. This epilogue was better, and I'm not irritated with Edward anymore. I feel so much less irritated now that I read from Edith and Bo, and I'm ready to move on to New Moon. I am so ready for New Moon, which is going to get posted in the new year. Oh man, I'm looking forward to it. Oh, I am so looking forward to reading New Moon now. This definitely did help a lot with my irritation, obviously. And now I'm going to read the afterword. Here we go. Little note from Stephenie. We meet again, gentle reader. I know it's a lot to expect you to read both a forward and an afterword, but there are a few things I wanted to say that I couldn't include in the beginning without spoiling the fun of your read. So obviously I have cheated. I did not stay true to the original story in the conclusion of my swap, and I am not sorry. It was exciting, and I very much enjoyed writing the alternate ending. But let me be quick to say, the fact that Bo becomes a vampire has nothing at all to do with the fact that he is a boy, not a girl. This change also does not mean that I prefer it to the original or think that the original was wrong. This has always just been the big what if, and I wanted to see what it would feel like if Twilight had been the end of the story, if like Bo, Bella had left the airport just 5 minutes earlier. There's a lot of happiness in Bo and Edith coming together and taking away the stumbling block between them so much earlier, but there's also great sadness. As a human, Bella had to endure a lot more pain than Bo did, but in the end I know she would tell you it was all worth it. Bo will be fine, more than fine. He'll be very happy, but he'll always have the one big regret. Bella was able to put her house in order, and she's confident she got the best version of the story. So that is the end of Bo and Edith's story. You are free to imagine the rest. When, where, and how they got married. What Victor might try in order to get revenge. What Bo and Jules will say to each other when they meet again. If Bo and Royal ever become friends. Whether the Volturi led by Sulpicia are a more benign, less corrupt organization. I think so. I hope you've enjoyed a different look at Twilight. That really isn't very difficult at all. That isn't very different at all. Except for the end, which I don't apologize for. Again, thank you for everything you've meant to me in the last 10 years. Thank you, Stephenie. P.S. I didn't make a playlist for this one as I usually do, because the music I'm listening to now didn't exist in 2005, when the story begins, and that felt off. But if you are interested, the soundtrack inside my head for this one is basically 3 albums. Royal Blood by Royal Blood, Seeds by TV on the Radio, and 2-0 by Big Data. Oh my god! She included a freaking afterword? Okay, so now that just leaves it all up to us, right? It just leaves it all up to us to decide how things end up being in the future and how things are. Like, I can imagine that the fan fiction for Life and Death has skyrocketed in the past, decade or so. And in 2025, 10 years after this damn thing is written, oh man, when 2025 comes, it'll be 20 years since Twilight had been printed. Unfreaking believable! Oh my god! Oh my god, I can't. That's it. That's the conclusion. That's the conclusion that we get, and it feels so good to be able to finish Life and Death. I enjoyed it. I have to say, this story, I loved it so much, and I cannot wait to start New Moon. I don't know if I'll start it today. I don't think I have enough time to start it today, actually, because I have to start getting ready for work, and I have to leave in about an hour from now. Yeah, there's a lot I should be doing in an hour from now, so maybe I'll start New Moon on Monday for sure. But this is it. This is the end. If you guys enjoyed the reading of Life and Death Twilight Reimagined, be sure to leave a like on the video, comment down below. If you're brand new, subscribe to the channel, And stick around for the read aloud of New Moon, which will be coming in the new year. And also be on the lookout for more scripted content that will be coming onto the channel. I've got lots of big ideas for this new year, and I'm so looking forward to seeing how those plans coming into fruition. And thank you guys for getting me to over 500 subscribers. God bless, happy viewing, and have a nice day, everybody. See ya.